What if your spiritual awakening wasn't meant to feel like bliss, but like death? What if the unraveling of your life, your identity, your mind was not a crisis, but a calling? Most people who begin the awakening journey believe they're heading toward light, but few are prepared for the descent, the ego's collapse, the dark night, the isolation, and fewer still survive it. Not because the path is wrong, but because the pain is misinterpreted. Carl Jung knew this better than anyone. He saw awakening not as ascension, but as individuation, the integration of shadow and soul. And it's in this sacred fire that the self is reborn. In this video, we expose the hidden terrain of awakening, the reasons most people give up, the psychological traps, the vibrational voids, and the alchemical suffering that purifies the soul. This is not a path of quick fixes or spiritual highs. It is the real work, the soul work, the descent before the rise. If you've ever felt like your awakening is breaking you, you're not lost. You're on the exact path your soul intended. When most people hear the term spiritual awakening, they imagine light, bliss, and revelation. But in reality, the first stage often feels like a personal apocalypse. The ego, your constructed identity, begins to collapse, and it doesn't go quietly. It claws, fights, bargains. It has been the mask you wore for survival, for acceptance. And now that mask is dissolving, and behind it is raw, unfiltered being. Carl Jung called this process the confrontation with the unconscious. It is not gentle, it is initiatory. The ego, sensing its irrelevance, interprets awakening as death. In this dismemberment, your former motivations crumble. What once excited you, career ambitions, social validation, routines, suddenly feels meaningless. This loss of psychological structure can trigger anxiety, depression, or even panic. You're not broken. You're being rewired. Like a caterpillar liquefying in the chrysalis, your form dissolves so a higher version can emerge. But in the formless phase, many feel lost. They want to run back to the known. That's where most give up. Not because awakening is wrong, but because the ego convinces them it's dangerous. Jung taught that the ego must not be destroyed, but integrated. Yet integration cannot begin until it's seen for what it is, a servant, not the master. The spiritual path doesn't ask you to erase who you are, it asks you to question who you think you are. This questioning is terrifying. It unearths wounds and disorients your inner compass. But it's also sacred. It's the first doorway to individuation, the journey toward becoming whole, authentic, real. The key is not to resist the unraveling, but to witness it, to breathe through it, to understand that the ego's fear is a sign that something greater is being born. The paradox is this: the more you try to hold on, the more painful it becomes. Surrender is the medicine. Not passive surrender, but courageous surrender. A willingness to let go of illusion in exchange for truth, even when truth hurts. So if you feel like you're falling apart, you're not alone, you're not broken, you're being initiated. What dies is not your essence, it's the limitation around it. And on the other side of that ego death is not nothingness, but freedom. One of the most terrifying and necessary phases of spiritual awakening is what Carl Jung called shadow integration. It's the moment your higher consciousness turns inward and shines a brutal, unflinching light on the parts of yourself you've long buried. All the shame, the rage, the envy, the fear, the things you were taught to suppress in order to be accepted, suddenly surface. And it doesn't come gently. It erupts. You might lash out, you might collapse. You might be shocked by your own thoughts. But this is not regression, it's revelation. Most people mistake this eruption of shadow for failure. They think, I'm supposed to be awakening. Why do I feel darker than ever? But this is precisely the trap. You cannot ascend while denying half your psyche. Spiritual bypassing, where people chase only the light and deny the dark, is the most seductive poison. True awakening is integration, not escape. The path doesn't just reveal your light. It forces you to reclaim the exiled pieces of your humanity, and that's where real power is reborn. The shadow is not your enemy, it's your hidden teacher. It holds your primal energy, your suppressed creativity, your unacknowledged intuition. Jung believed that when you integrate the shadow, it no longer controls you from behind the scenes. It becomes conscious fuel. But to claim that fuel, you must first face the dragon. That dragon might look like childhood trauma, jealousy, addiction, or control issues. Whatever it is, it shows up not to punish, but to liberate you from unconscious loops. This process is so emotionally intense that many people abort their awakening at this stage. It feels too raw, too overwhelming, but in truth, this is the soul detoxing. You are purging inherited pain. You are confronting the parts of yourself that were never truly accepted, not even by you. And each time you hold space for that shadow with compassion rather than judgment, you dissolve the illusion of separation within. Awakening isn't about becoming better, it's about becoming whole. And wholeness includes every messy, divine, complicated aspect of your being. The moment you stop running from your shadow and begin listening to it is the moment your healing accelerates, not in comfort, but in authenticity. One of the most painful initiations of spiritual awakening is the experience of isolation. Not the kind you choose, but the kind that slowly creeps in as you realize your old life no longer fits. Conversations that once flowed now feel empty. Relationships that once sustained you now feel suffocating. The people around you haven't changed, but you have. And that shift, that frequency recalibration, often creates a void, a distance, a silence that feels like exile. This is not just emotional loneliness, it's vibrational mismatch. As your consciousness expands, your energetic resonance shifts. You begin to operate from a different bandwidth, one that your previous reality may not recognize or support. Friends may mock your journey, family may express concern or call it a phase. You may even question your own sanity. This is the isolation trap, the feeling that awakening has left you alone in a world that doesn't understand you anymore. Carl Jung wrote about the individual's path to individuation as necessarily solitary. The deeper you go into your own psyche, the more you depart from the collective trance. And that divergence can feel like abandonment. You didn't ask to be different. You didn't choose to lose connections. But the soul doesn't evolve by permission. It evolves by necessity. And sometimes that means walking away from the familiar in order to walk toward the true. Many give up at this stage, not because the journey is invalid, but because the human heart longs for belonging. And when spiritual growth costs you your tribe, it can feel unbearable. But here's the paradox. The more authentically you walk your path, the more you begin to magnetize new connections, souls who resonate not out of habit, but out of energetic alignment. But those connections rarely appear during the void. First, you must learn to belong to yourself. This solitude is not a punishment, it's preparation. It teaches you to stand in your own energy, to trust your own inner guidance, to feel your own frequency without the distortion of others. In that sacred silence, you begin to realize you are not alone. You are being recalibrated for a new reality, one where connection is not forced, but forged through resonance. Carl Jung spoke of the night sea journey, a mythological descent into the depths of the unconscious. It's the symbolic drowning of the old self, and in the context of spiritual awakening, this phase often arrives like a storm that won't pass. The lights go out, the path disappears, nothing makes sense. You're no longer who you were, but you're not yet who you're becoming. It feels like psychological freefall. And it's in this liminal, shadow-soaked space that most people want to quit. Why? Because the night sea journey doesn't come with instructions. It feels like spiritual amnesia. Your tools stop working, your meditations become hollow, the signs go silent, and the ego, desperate to regain control, interprets this silence as abandonment. But in truth, it's a sacred pause, a gestation. Just as a seed disappears before it sprouts, your soul is reconfiguring itself in darkness. This breakdown is not a failure of awakening, it's a feature of it. Every ancient tradition speaks of it. The dark night of the soul, the void, the desert. It's the spiritual equivalent of molting. You must shed the old skin, but it hurts and it itches, and it leaves you temporarily exposed. Jung believed that this descent into the unconscious was essential for individuation. Without it, the ego remains inflated. But with it, something far deeper is born, a soul-centered identity. In this phase, time distorts, days blur, emotional waves rise and crash without warning. You may feel numb, angry, hopeless, or absurdly ecstatic, all within an hour. But this isn't chaos, it's initiation. You are being stripped of illusion, of attachment, of the false scaffolding you once clung to. And it's only in this nakedness that true clarity can emerge. To survive the night sea journey, you must become like the mystic sailor, surrendering to the current, trusting the unseen, knowing that the breakdown is the birth canal. The waters are treacherous, yes, but they are also alchemical. They dissolve what is not you, so that what is eternally you can surface. In an age of instant everything, instant access, instant success, instant gratification, the myth of instant enlightenment has become dangerously seductive. We're sold the idea that awakening is a one-time event, a single epiphany, a sudden flash of light and boom, you're free. But Carl Jung and every mystic who's truly walked the inner path knew otherwise. Awakening is not a singular moment. It's a descent, a spiral, a journey that continues long after the first crack of consciousness opens. That first breakthrough, however powerful, is just the beginning. It's the spark, not the flame. The true work begins when the illusion lifts and you're left standing in a reality you no longer recognize. Everything must be re-evaluated. Old beliefs, identities, desires, they must be tested in the fire of awareness. And that fire doesn't burn once, it burns again and again. This is not failure, it is refinement. Many seekers grow disillusioned because they expect awakening to feel like permanent bliss. But bliss is a byproduct, not a guarantee. The path will ask you to confront your programming, face your shadows, and hold space for paradox. It will test your commitment, not with punishment, but with evolution. Jung wrote that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. That pain isn't cruelty, it's transformation, like muscle tearing to grow stronger. The illusion of overnight enlightenment leads people to chase highs and avoid depths. They confuse activation with embodiment. But true awakening lives in the body, in the choices, in the mundane acts of presence. It's not how high you go, it's how deeply you anchor. The awakened one is not the one who glows with temporary insight, but the one who integrates that insight over decades of devotion. To walk the path is to return again and again to your center, to recognize that the divine doesn't just live in peaks, but in the valleys, in heartbreak, in stillness, in everyday breath. That is the descent, and it is holy. Suffering, in the context of spiritual awakening, is not punishment. It's alchemy. It's the sacred fire that burns away illusion, attachment, and unconsciousness. Yet when it strikes, it rarely feels sacred. It feels cruel. People cry out, "Why is this happening to me?" But Carl Jung and the mystics who came before him knew the deeper question isn't why, but what is this suffering trying to show me? That's the key to transmutation. To stop resisting pain and start listening to it. The pain that arises during awakening is not random, it's ancestral, it's karmic, it's cellular, it surfaces because it's ready to be healed. Your triggers are your teachers. The breakdown is the curriculum. But this requires a radical shift in perception. Instead of running from the wound, you must walk into it, consciously. That's where the gold is. Jung called this the gold in the shadow. The very thing you wish to avoid holds the soul gift you've been searching for. You begin to realize that suffering isn't a block to awakening, it is the awakening. The more you resist it, the more it controls you. But when you breathe into the ache, when you sit with the sorrow, the rage, the confusion, it begins to change shape. The pain becomes a portal. It reveals hidden truths, forgotten memories, misaligned patterns. And once revealed, those fragments can be reclaimed. That's soul retrieval. That's energetic sovereignty. This process is not linear. Some days the pain feels unbearable, but even that is part of the alchemical fire. It humbles the ego, softens the identity, opens the heart. And in that openness, something miraculous happens. You begin to recognize your own resilience, your ability to survive, to feel, to transform. That's where the soul draws its power, from the integration of its own brokenness. Awakening is not about avoiding pain. It's about transmuting it, turning it into wisdom, into clarity, into compassion. The same fire that scorched you now becomes your light. There comes a point in every awakening where the seeker must make a choice, whether consciously or not. Do they integrate what they've uncovered, or do they escape back into illusion? This is the crossroads, and it is more subtle and more pivotal than it appears. Integration demands patience, humility, and radical honesty. Escape, on the other hand, offers the seductive illusion of comfort. Many turn back here, not because they lack the desire to grow, but because they don't yet trust they can hold their new truth. Carl Jung taught that real transformation doesn't happen in visions or revelations. It happens when you bring that awareness back into your daily life. That's integration. It's easy to have a peak experience. It's harder to embody that insight when you're triggered, exhausted, or surrounded by unawakened systems. Integration means making your awakening practical, grounded, and real. It means having hard conversations. It means setting boundaries. It means choosing presence when patterns want to take over. Escape takes many forms: spiritual bypassing, addiction to high vibration states, denial of shadow, or romanticizing the journey. It's sneaky. It tells you you're still evolving when really you're avoiding. Jung warned of this illusion, where the ego hijacks the spiritual process and turns it into performance. True evolution doesn't look like perfection. It looks like returning again and again to wholeness, to the messy, miraculous now. At this stage, many people unconsciously choose escape. The insights are too heavy, the relationships too strained, the change is too real, and so they retreat. Back into jobs they've outgrown, roles they've transcended, beliefs they no longer resonate with. But that's not failure, it's a pause. Sometimes we need to forget in order to remember more deeply later, yet those who press on, who choose integration, enter a new octave of power. To integrate is to anchor heaven into earth. It's to live your awakening, not just talk about it. And that choice, the choice to walk the path with eyes wide open, is what makes you a bridge between worlds. Not an escape artist, but an alchemist. If spiritual awakening begins with the death of the ego, it ends with the rebirth of the self, not the small self, but the true self. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the integration of all parts of the psyche into a unified whole. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. After the storms, the shadows, the isolations, and the initiations, what emerges is not a perfected being, but an authentic one. This rebirth is quiet. It's not always celebrated. There's no parade, no certificate. It lives in the way you breathe, in the decisions you now make from alignment, not fear, in the way your presence affects a room without speaking a word. You begin to trust yourself, not because you're always certain, but because you're deeply connected to your inner authority. And that's the gift awakening was trying to give you all along: sovereignty. This stage isn't the end, it's the beginning of living awake, of walking the world not as a seeker but as a creator. You no longer ask for permission to be who you are. You no longer outsource your truth to external systems or gurus. Your intuition sharpens, your discernment deepens, and you carry your spiritual wisdom not like a badge, but like a tuning fork, silently calibrating others by your being. Jung understood that individuation wasn't about isolation, but wholeness. It's about being fully human and fully divine, fully feeling and fully free. You've walked through darkness, not to escape the world, but to love it from a higher octave. And in doing so, you become what the mystics call a living soul, a light in the matrix, a mirror for others awakening. The reason most give up on their awakening is because they don't yet realize this is where it leads. But for those who endure, who face themselves, integrate and trust the process, something extraordinary happens. They don't just awaken, they embody, they become. You were never meant to awaken and remain the same. Spiritual awakening isn't a trend, it isn't a mood, it's a death and resurrection of everything you thought you were. Most will turn back at the first sign of discomfort. But the few who walk through the fire, who embrace the darkness as part of the divine, emerge with something the world cannot take: inner authority. Carl Jung reminded us that wholeness is not perfection, but integration. Not escape from the world, but alignment within it. The pain you faced, it was initiation, the loneliness, preparation, and the breakdowns, invitations into your deepest truth. If you're still walking this path, you are among the brave, among the awakened, among the reborn. Let this video be a mirror for your strength, a remembrance of your power. And if you felt seen, understood, or activated, like this video and subscribe to the Cosmic Awakening channel. Your journey is sacred, your evolution is real, and your presence here means you're ready.